Hey everybody, it's Jake again. Today what we're going to do is we're going to put on some nice rod holders on the Gheenoe. If you know anything about these boats, they don't come well equipped. They come very basic and you have to kind of customize them yourself. So that's what we're going to do today. What we're going to use is the oar holders on each side of the boat. As you may notice, there are 5 bolts that go straight through that hold that bracket on. We're going to use both sides, and that's where we're going to mount our rod holders. Let's get started. We are going to use some pressure treated 1x4 lumber that I picked up at Home Depot. You can see it says weathersheild. This stuff is guaranteed not to rot or decay, and other than using like a teak, this is probably the best thing we can put in the boat, especially in salt water. Alright, so let's take out our tape measure and just decide how long we're going to make this piece of wood. The piece of wood has to be long enough that we can get all 5 of those bolts in, and also have enough room to mount the rod holder, and then also maybe a little bit of room in case we want to add something in the future. So take out the tape measure here. As I said, we're going to draw some lines. There's an old saying my dad used to say, measure twice, cut once. As you can see, I'm measuring twice. And it's not even that critical, to be honest with you. We just got to get it about 14 inches is what I decided on. And we're going to score a line, and we're going to cut 2 pieces that match, one for each side of the boat. Alright, let's get our saw out and start cutting. I needed a place to cut this thing, so I decided to just lay the boards across the top of the boat, get a couple of clamps, one on each side, and just hold the board down so it wouldn't move when I tried cutting it. I didn't have any help that day. And just using a standard circular saw, and let's go ahead and cut these boards. Okay, so now let's go ahead and sand the boards down. I used an orbital sander with about 120 grit sandpaper on it, and I just wanted to make sure that I sanded all 6 sides, and I wanted to make it nice and smooth before I put the finish on it. Alright, so the next step is going to be sealing it. So I used a bare solid color white weatherproofing all-in-one stain and sealer, and it's a pretty good product. Comes with like a 25-year warranty on it, and it covered actually pretty well. I put 2 coats on it. It takes about an hour and a half to totally dry in between coats. And when I was done, it actually looked pretty nice. There was no sanding in between coats, and I didn't even sand the final coat. Alright, now we have to take these brackets off. When you pull these brackets off, you take out the 5 bolts, and there is going to be some kind of silicone sealant behind it. So when you pull the brackets off, you're going to have to clean the silicone, the dried silicone off, and even apply some fresh marine grade silicone behind the brackets. So at this point, let's get our board out, and we're going to lay it in place and decide exactly where we want to put it. And then we're simply going to take a marker and just kind of just mark the 5 holes, because that's where we're going to drill. We used a 1/4-inch drill bit, and one of the things to take notice of is that you're going to need longer bolts to go through this board. The bolts that were originally in the boat holding the bracket on were probably like 3/4 of an inch stainless steel, and what we did is we replaced them with 1.5-inch stainless steel bolts that we also picked up at Home Depot. Here I am putting on some fresh silicone. It looks white, but it dries clear, and that's a marine grade silicone adhesive. When you line up the board, hopefully the bolts actually go into the holes that you drilled. If they do not go into the holes, you can simply hold the bracket up and use that as the template instead of using a marker and trying to just, mark the holes and drill them after. You can just hold the template up against the board and drill through the board, and that way you'll know you'll get it 100%. Once the bolts are in, you're going to need some kind of a big flat washer, because the wood is kind of soft, so when you start cranking down on those nuts to hold it down, the washers themselves actually countersink a little bit into the wood, and the nuts of course would sink in even deeper, so you definitely need some sort of a flat washer on there. Alright, so here's the product. It's the Attwood heavy duty rod holder. I paid about $18 or $19 a piece for these. I bought 2 of them, and I got it over at Walmart actually, and that's what we're going to use. The rod holders themselves, they come apart, so you'll first put the actual mount on. That's the mount, and you're going to use some stainless steel screws, which are actually not included. So you'll have to get some screws, and just be careful when you buy the screws that you don't get screws that are too long, because you can end up screwing a hole through the other side of the boat. I decided to go with a 1-inch screw, and between the bracket itself, the screw tip barely made it through to the other side, so it was perfect. And that's what the screw looks like right there. And it is stainless steel. If the screw goes through, you'll have to maybe cut it down a little bit with a Dremel or something. This part is easy. Just carefully screw the screws in and to hold the bracket on. I did not use a washer in here. It wasn't necessary because the screw heads were big enough that they weren't going to pull through the bracket. And once you get all 4 screws in, the rest of it is simply putting the rest of the rod holder on, and you can see that it's kind of adjustable. You can move it in different directions. And I repeated this same procedure. What you see here is an identical procedure to the other side of the boat. The whole thing probably took, well, if you count the time that the paint had to take to dry, it took a few hours, several hours. But if you just count the actual time, doing the mechanics of the whole thing, it's not that big of a job. You're looking at maybe, an hour and a half to 2 hours. There's the completed job. You can see the rod holders. They look really, really awesome, and I actually can't wait to try them out. I'm probably going to try to mount even another rod holder on the little space that you see, probably just a piece of PVC plastic pipe, vertical piece of plastic pipe, and that way, in case I have a third rod out there, which happens kind of often, and that way we'll be all set. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up. Please comment. Subscribers, I love subscribers. And have a great day and happy boating. Thank you. Bye.